All right, guys, here we go. We're off and running today to talk about Monarch Legacy of Monsters Season 2, Episode 6, titled Requiem, running at 55 minutes long, and a promise of Godzilla, Kong, and Titan X all hitting our screens together. Did it deliver? Let's talk about it. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Digital Charcuterie. My name is James. Thank you so much for stopping by. If you're new to the channel and a fan of Monarch Legacy of Monsters, hit that subscribe button because I talk about it and discuss it with you all the time right here on the channel. I do a preview show every week and have some fun videos as well talking about this series and the MonsterVerse as a whole. I do quite enjoy this series, but I gotta say, fair warning before I continue, if you have not seen episodes 1 through 6 of Monarch Legacy of Monsters Season 2, hit that pause button because there will be spoilers ahead, and I don't want to ruin it if you have not seen it. So go watch it. I'll see you in like 6 hours. Anyway, let's get right into it. This episode starts off 2 weeks ago on Skull Island. Before the series even starts, we see Kentaro drawing up, sketching some images of the mighty Kong. Kong looks down on him, says, okay, you're here, get out of here. We see that he snuck in, and now he has a nice father-son moment with Hiroshi. Hiroshi is here, who, of course, passed away in last week's downer of an episode. It was the saddest episode to date. But they have a moment, father-son bonding moment, where we learn that Hiroshi actually vanished for a little while he was in Alaska. He was gone for a year, and he wound up in Africa because of the way time works in Axis Mundi. Now he's happy. They're going to get Kate back. Kentaro says, this is how the whole thing starts. Kentaro's like, I don't know if she's alive. And he goes, this is how I know she's alive. I've been there. Time works differently there. Let's go get her. I'm glad I get that year back. And this whole season, we've seen Hiroshi really talk to Kentaro about like trusting and loving his sister. Right? This is your sister, even though they're half sisters or whatever, and they didn't know each other their entire lives. He's like, this is still family. You have to respect family and understand family. And Kentaro's kind of really been adverse to the whole thing. He doesn't really want anything to do with Kate, but he reluctantly goes along with her. And now this is setting up this wedge that we're going to see play out, I think, even more later on with Kentaro and his feelings towards Kate, and almost blaming Kate for Hiroshi's death, for his father's death. We see that in this episode. He kind of hints that in this episode, that Kate let out the Titan, and because of that, his father is now dead. And we see that fallout, and we see more of it as we go into Hiroshi's funeral, which is a big emotional beat, and starts the whole catalyst for the next half of the season now is because of this funeral and because of Hiroshi's passing. And we get to the funeral, and everyone has their final goodbyes. And Kate says to Kentaro, we're going to have to talk. And Kentaro goes, we're not going to talk. This is basically your fault. And they go their separate ways. And Lee Shaw, the last thing he says is, I'm going to set this right. He doesn't say that to Kate. He doesn't say that to Kentaro. He doesn't say that to Keiko. He says that to Hiroshi. He says it right to Hiroshi, because I'm going to make this right, and that's setting him off in this episode as well. They're really now, the first half of the season was all set up, and now the stage is set at the end of this episode. Now we get the end of this episode. While we're there, though, good old Suzuki from season 1 shows up. He's aged. Obviously, he's aged like a normal human being would. He's surprised to say that Keiko has not aged one day, and he recognizes Lee Shaw, and he goes, wow, this is phenomenal. You should come to my house. And then Lee learns, they all learn, that Hiroshi and Suzuki were building a Titan cell phone. Let's just call it a Titan cell phone to call on Titans. And Lee Shaw's like, I got to get in this. I have to get in on this one. They're talking over dinner. They have some drinks, and we get some flashbacks now. We finally get Wyatt Russell, who has not been around in a couple of weeks. And we learn that he develops a drinking problem through his father, and his father is very controlling of his life. And we see this episode, had a lot of Lee Shaw in the past leaving Monarch. He's like, I don't want to be a part of Monarch. And we see him kind of bounce around, and he ends up ultimately back with Monarch at the end of the episode. And when he left, it was almost like, I was actually hoping that there was a reason why he left. Like, he had his own agenda, his own plan to learn more about something, to bring it back to the Randas. But instead, it was just kind of like, oh no, I've got to leave. I got to do my own thing. And then at the end, he's like, you know what? I was wrong. Here I am. I was wrong. I shouldn't have left you guys. You're smart and everything. And obviously, he leaves partially because of his feelings for Keiko. Of course, I understand that. But we know that ultimately he's going to come back. So some of the emotional stakes there, like, you're like, well, okay, this kind of feels like we're falling on hollow ground here because we know where it's going to wind up. Kentaro's really spiraling. He's making his way down. He goes to a bar. He just wants a drink. It's now a hippie bar. He can't get the drink that he wants, so he's there. He's with May, and May is apologizing. He goes, whatever. And he tries to make a move on her, and she goes, no. He goes, yeah, you're right. And she leaves. And then we meet Isabel, who happens to be the daughter of Walter Simmons. Apex is everywhere. Kentaro says, nope, it's not happening. And they do hit it off. Whether she's playing him or not remains to be seen. You got to suspect that she is, but they do hit it off in this moment, kind of taking a shot every time a Titan is mentioned or shown on the TV screen. And she puts her number in his phone, and he finds out who she is. He goes, I don't want anything to do with this. Later on, he's walking down the streets, and there's a Titan warning, and we see Titan X in the water. Red scales, mood ring. Titan is mad and on his way, and then Godzilla starts wreaking havoc, and they start fighting. They go toe to toe, mano a mano. Godzilla's tail swipes. Kentaro wakes up. It was a dream. It was a dream. All just a dream. King Kong at the beginning being sketched, and Titan X and Godzilla fighting was just a dream. It looked cool. It looked great, but it was just a dream. And, you know, I did my preview show last night, and a lot of people in the comments were saying, hey, I wanted more Titan activity. When are we going to get more Titan activity? And there was a promise that we are going to get that this week. It wasn't a lie, but there wasn't much. I think a lot of people will be disappointed in what we get. I look at this show as the human side of things. Like, I don't expect too much Titan activity, for better or worse. That's how I approach it. And there were some things in the human stuff that I do find kind of cheesy and whatever. But I like the scene between the two. I thought like the effects looked good. It was cool. It was stunning. And then it was just a dream, and it kind of felt like a tease. It kind of felt like they were pulling the rug from under the audience, and you know, it felt like a cop out in a lot of ways. But anyway, Kentaro wakes up. His mom's fine. He's very happy about it. He decides to call Isabel. Is this a turning point now for Kentaro? May still is in bed with Apex, right? So he could easily firmly get in there. And then you would have also the show would love it, a love triangle between May, Isabel, and Kentaro, which, you know, they would eat up for sure in the last half of this season. While that's all going on, Lee Shaw and Suzuki, they're like, we're going to summon Godzilla. And Keiko's like, are you nuts? You are nuts. Oh, and Lee Shaw's like, I am not nuts. We need to do it. And he actually quotes his father, that they have to survive. He quotes his father, and Keiko's like, you are not the Lee Shaw I remembered, which is not the first time this season she has said that to him. But he quotes his father directly, who got him drunk, who gave him a drinking problem, who we learn is sober, right? We know he's sober, and his father is the one that kind of really pushed him on the edge of drinking. He was already drinking a lot, but his father really was an enabler and kind of a dick. We learned that in the past of all of this. And his father's the reason why he bounces around and doesn't actually, he never lets Lee be who he wants to be who he can be. He never lets him, and Lee can be that with Monarch, with the Randas, and that's why he goes back to them. So they decide, Suzuki and Shaw are like, we are going to summon Godzilla. There is an opening where I came out, where Lee Shaw came out of. He goes, we're going to go there, and we're going to use this device thing, and we're going to summon Godzilla. And Keiko's like, you are psychotic. I'm going to go sit on the dock. And she sits on the dock, and Kate's like, I'm going to join her on the dock. And she joins her on the dock. She takes her shoes off, puts her feet down, and ripples start rippling. Start rippling all over. And Keiko's like, what is going on? She goes, I'm telling you, this is what's been going on every time I do this. Like, I have some psychic connection with Titan X. And Keiko's like, we've got to study this. She goes, okay. So they go to another dock to study it. They have all this gear, equipment here. There was a cassette tape for you young kids. I want to know what you think of cassette tapes, because I was like, this is fantastic. So they put all the devices all on Kate. She puts her feet in. Kate goes like, this is not strong enough. You've got to emerge. You got to go down in the water. So Kate goes down in the water, and Keiko starts recording. And all of a sudden you can hear Titan X. And I'm calling him Titan X. And you hear Titan X. Kate gets up. She's like, oh my God. And Kate goes like, it worked. Listen. Hits play. And Kate says, do you hear that? She goes, yeah. Kate says, that's not being a dick. That is fear. Titan X is afraid. It is lost. And everything made sense in that moment to me. I'm like, yes, of course Titan X is lost. Titan X coming to the dock on Santa Soledad was blue, right? Not fearful. It wasn't until it was attacked did it get fearful and turn red. It was calm. It was collected in that moment. And then it turned away. It also went there years before it was meant to go there, right? Because Kate released it early. It got there early. Apex did what it did. There's a lot going on. It turned around. It needs to go back home to access money, which is, I think, is where this is all taking, where it's all going to head up, where it's all going to come together now is going to be there, or maybe just back to Santos or that, whatever. But I was like, yeah, it all started to make sense. This Titan is a Titan, obviously, and will wreak havoc on anything, but it's not vengeful. It's fearful, and it's just like a lost puppy, and it wants to go home. And I was like, that makes complete sense. And Kate goes, well, we got to stop Lee and Suzuki. And Lee and Suzuki are like, too late, and they got the machine going, and Access Money opens up, and it looks beautiful. And it starts, and Lee Shaw has to act as a conduit to try to get Godzilla. And Suzuki like, we got something. I don't know if it's Godzilla, but I can feel something. I see something. And Lee Shaw starts getting sucked into the rift. Just starts getting sucked into it. And he tells Suzuki to shut off. Suzuki shuts it off, and it's still going. And he goes, what is going on? And Suzuki's like, I don't know. And then all of a sudden, everything just freezes in time. And Suzuki's not looking at it. I thought he was going to have a heart attack, to be honest. But Suzuki's not looking at it. And Lee looks at it and goes, this is beautiful. And then stops. He goes, did you see that? And Suzuki's like, I didn't see anything. You're crazy. And the walkie-talkie goes off. And it's Wyatt Russell Lee Shaw. Wyatt Russell Lee Shaw on the walkie-talkie. Kurt Russell Lee Shaw is in shock. Episode ends. Now, they did say they were going to find a way for the two of them to share a scene together. I guess we're going there. Now, the question is, and I want to know your thoughts in the comments down below, was this enough to fulfill your thirst for Titan activity, even though it was just a dream? And very much a cop-out, I felt. But was this enough for that? Again, I thought the effects looked great, but the scenes themselves, I mean, if you cut that nightmare scene out, not much changes. If you cut King Kong out, not much changes. The Hiroshi and Kentaro scene absolutely needs to be in, but the King Kong scene, yeah, I mean, it shows Kentaro sketching. And we learn also that Hiroshi loved to draw also. In fact, he draws Titan X, and they named him something after Hiroshi as well, as a little joke. So we get this. So there's like the connection there between them. But it's more that, right? We don't need to see any of that. So I want to know your thoughts in the comments down below. I thought this was a great episode. Like, for this series of what this series is, I really enjoyed this episode. But I can see people being underwhelmed by what they've gotten. We're 6 episodes in. There hasn't been a ton of Titan activity, which I don't think we were really promised anyway. But I do think, we've got 7, 8, 9, and 10 coming up. I do believe that it's. I think next week, they're really playing with the sci-fi. I think next week is going to be very sci-fi heavy. I think that's when we're going to see Wyatt Russell and Kurt Russell share screen time together. We're going to learn a lot more. We're going to learn things right now that's going to blow the doors of the MonsterVerse, dare I say, wide open. I think there's going to be a discovery there that's going to change the dynamics of this franchise for quite some time. And now, maybe what they come up with has already been changed in the future. I don't know, but I think they're gonna figure something out that will change the dynamics of this franchise for quite some time. Kate now, what Kate's learning from Titan X, the connection. Still, we have to establish why they have a connection. Still, that and now we know Titan X is not vengeful, it's fearful, and they've got to put that to rest as well. A lot to unpack coming up. Can't wait. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. I really appreciate your time. Hit that like button, subscribe. Until next time, may you be the master of your own universe.